Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's 8 o'clock on my iPad, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Let's see. We have in the room all the commissioners except Commissioner Meyer, who is virtual. Okay. So everybody else is present in the room. Welcome to all of our guests. Staff, I guess. I don't know if anybody's online. And then virtual meeting guidance, Cassie.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. While the Commission and staff are in person, we are still offering a Zoom option so members of the public can attend. If you're attending virtually and would like to speak, you can do so during appearances by the public. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. Finally, Commissioners, please use your microphones while speaking and make sure your voice is directed towards the mic. When you're not speaking, please ensure your mic is off so others can utilize the mics. As a reminder, only 3 of the table mics can be live at a time. Also, please state your name before speaking for those who may be joining us via Zoom. Those are the decorum rules of the District Commission. Thank you for following them, and let's have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. And if anybody's sick of the rain, they can blame Commissioner Meyer, because on Monday during our agenda setting meeting, he said, the solution to pollution is dilution. And so I think we're diluting our pollution. Okay. Yeah, I hope so. Okay, any appearances by the public? No appearances by the public. Consent calendar. We have the meeting minutes of 3/26, cash statement capital fund, expedited boundary agreement on Siegel Car Road in McFarland, sanitary sewer extension plans for Southeast Interceptor rehabilitation in Stoughton, to Madison, Exchange Street to Larson Beach Road, Nine Springs Valley Interceptor, capacity improvements. Then we get to total project cost for dryer seating modifications, contract for Northeast Interceptor Truax Extension Rehab, proposal and award a contract for IT Quality Assurance Tester, and proposal and award a contract for Nutanix license renewal. Anybody have any questions on any of these items? Dan.
Commissioner Pauls, one question is on the cash statement that you have on there. You have the city treasurer's signature on there now. Is he or she going to actually sign that?
The question I do not have an answer to. Is this something that we would like to discuss in Finance Committee?
Yeah, I just wondered, because I didn't see it before, and also now it's on there. Table it to the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, I always thought years ago the city treasurer was our treasurer, so I didn't know what they signed and didn't sign, but, yeah. Okay, any other questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with that moving to the Finance Committee to discuss that issue?
Commissioner Lytle, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Murphy, I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Lytle, second by Commissioner Murphy to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 I abstain since
Okay.
I was absent last meeting.
Okay, so Commissioner Bookland's abstaining, and all the rest are ayes, or any nays. I heard all ayes, so no nays, so everybody else except for Commissioner Bookland. Okay, good. That takes us to the study session, deliberation and direction on the district strategic plan. So Eric really doesn't have a presentation. The strategic plan was handed out a few weeks ago. for us to review and to take a look at, and then we're gonna open up for discussion and see if anybody has any amendments. If you have an amendment, then we can have a discussion, and we'll get a motion as to whether or not to approve the amendment and vote on it, so that they know what they wish to do. But I had a couple questions. First of all, as I was reading through this, I had, I think, 3 questions. So, under financial capacity and resilience, there's two places where I see this come up. District staff have heard and understand the concerns, and we will address them as we continue to develop this KPI, and that's, I think, basically kind of that Nessie curve, stuff like that. So then later on, also under infrastructure reliability, under asset condition index, staff recognizes the need to develop a comprehensive roadmap for this KPI based on data review, best practices, data currently has, district has, and data needed. So I'm wondering, what are these KPIs going to be formalized? Because if we're approving this, I'd let you know, and that everybody has to follow their goals to align with this, I think we ought, they ought to know what the KPIs are at that point, right? So I don't know if you've had any progress on that or when we can expect that.
Yeah, Eric Dundee, Executive Director. So the goal of today is to confirm that these are the KPIs that we want to use. And then we have already, as staff, as the executive management team, identified the owners of who owns each one of these as a responsibility. And really the first, let's say, quarter or maybe more is going to be defining what information is in there. The commission in the previous meetings had talked about how to maybe split some of this information and show it. That would be goal number 1 for us, is to figure out how we want to report these things, and then we'll kind of work through that with you. But the KPI itself that's written, we would stick to that.
Okay, so the definition of the KPI that's written has yet to come, and hopefully that'll be done in the first, you mean the first quarter of next year or the quarter following this?
It would be the quarter following this, and the definition is done. It's the how to report it.
How to report it.
Yep.
Okay, the definition is done, how to best report it, and I was trying to figure that. So we'll see more on those as they come up. Okay, my third question relates, and I'm glad that Alan's here, because it relates to the KPIs where we talked about asset condition. Sorry, I got to get to the next page. We talked about third-party compliance validation on the regulatory compliance, and one of them was the CMAR report. And so I'm bringing that up because I've got a concern over, what our new permit's going to say in terms of, for example, chlorides. And that it's almost like we've known that depending on how we report it and calculate it, and I remember all that Alan talked about that, but it could put us into a state of noncompliance, right? And so I don't know if it's appropriate for us. On one hand, yes, it's appropriate for us to tie ourselves to our permit, right? But on the other hand, when they're actually doing something that almost makes you put yourself into a state of noncompliance, it makes us look maybe worse than we really are, because it's, what they're putting something on us in terms of non-point pollution adds into that whole thing, and that's why we've been working on road salts and everything else like that. But we can't control how much road salt the local municipality or the county or a private vendor puts on a parking lot. We can't control how much salt the person uses in their water softener, and we've been trying to work on those things, but yet we're tied to them, even though we don't, we try to educate people on it. You get what I'm saying? And so I'm just trying to figure out what our best idea is, and I know the idea of third-party compliance makes sense, and the permit makes a lot of sense, because that's what we're graded on by but when they're almost forcing you to put yourself into a state of non-compliance potentially because of the chloride issue that we can't treat out, you know, I just question that is that showing us into something we'll never meet?
So I would respond to that as saying the point of the strategic plan and the KPIs is it's data. We haven't had as a commission the conversation about what we think is acceptable data or good data or good measurement. So if we as a commission, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but if you are specifically talking about chlorides and the commission says, we understand the situation you're in now, and we would like to judge it in a way that says 2 excursions or less is acceptable to us. That's the conversation for the commission as we go through this. You know, I can't sit in a room in public meeting and say we're not going to meet permit. We are going to do that. But you as a commission can understand for you as a group how you want to judge the data that we provide.
Thank you. So does anybody have any amendment they would like to make or any other questions on the, Patrick?
Yeah, Commissioner Lytle, one just clarifying question. The last sentence on page 88 mentions that once the 3-year plan is complete, divisions and departments will work on their own work plans. I'm assuming once the 3-year plan is finalized or approved, that's when that happens. We're not waiting 3 years for departments to begin work plans.
Thank you for the clarification. Not only are we not waiting 3 years, we are ready to provide you with a 3-year plan of what we think is the highest priorities for the district as soon as we get through this next step. So, yeah, we are working on it right now.
Okay. So does anybody have any further questions or amendments? Beth?
I just have a comment, and that is, I think that these look really good, and I appreciate you incorporating many of our comments in there, so really appreciate that. That looks great. Again, I think the only thing that I have a little bit of a concern about is that I don't see anything in these about organizational structure. And, you know, we talked about that before. Organizational strength, we talked about session planning and such as that. So I think that those are really important, and I think that I'd like to see at least some part of that included at some point in the future. And I know that's, you know, we talked about this, and some of that is incorporated into this, but I just think that that's something that's important that we should consider.
Anybody have any response? I'm just trying to think on the organizational. It seems like if we're aligning ourselves on these 4 areas, the organization then be molded to these 4 areas. Yeah.
I do agree, and that's why I'm okay with this. But I do have some, I guess, a little bit of nagging concern that we don't call it out directly. So that's just it.
Okay, but you're not looking to amend it at this point.
Exactly, not looking to amend it, but just thinking in the future that that's something that we need to keep tabs on and keep aware of.
Yeah, get a little time under our belt.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else?
Tom, I've got,
Yeah, go ahead, Ezra.
Thank you. I've been around long enough to have been through a few strategic planning exercises with this organization, and I think I feel the best about this one of any of them I've been a part of by far. Really liked the process we went through. The staff work was excellent, and then, you know, as Beth just mentioned, you reached out to the commission and involved us at an important stage there, and you know, the document we have now reflects all of us all of us, putting our ideas into it. And, so that feels really good. I think we're headed in a really great direction with it. Because we're doing this check-in today on kind of, direction and, you know, any possible, additions or tweaks to the four that we went through in depth through the last fall. I do have one. I think Beth and I kind of started to raise some thoughts about this at one of those meetings a while back. But I think about our history as an organization and all of the sort of leading edge, you know, kind of innovation that we always have done on a number of fronts, including around sustainability. And then I sort of track down this document from top to bottom, and I pick up protecting public health and environment in the mission. I pick up sustainability as one of the 3 values that we name. And then I come down to the performance areas and indicators, and all 4 of these are terrific and make a ton of sense. And I wonder if there ought not be a 5th performance area for sustainability. We've done so much great work on that front. I think there's lots of room for us to continue to go on down that direction. It's sort of, you know, it can be it's a combination in my mind of a way you look at everything you do. That's sort of how I think about sustainability in a lot of ways. I remember in the past, I don't know if we're still doing this at the staff level, but all sorts of activities we got into, we used a sustainability action map or something to that effect to really kind of make it a matter of course that as we're doing the work we do, we think about sustainability dimensions very intentionally. And I always thought that was great. I hope we still do that. I think we ought to do something like that always. But the other dimension of sustainability is it can be specific projects and efforts. You know, we did an energy plan a few years ago. We'd never done something like a greenhouse gas, you know, plan exactly. We probably could. You know, I think, especially as some of these things are in flux right now around how we do the gas recycling at the plant. I think if we didn't do some of the innovative things we've done for decades, we'd be one of the biggest electricity users in MG&E's footprint. We're probably up in the top handful even now with the innovative things that we do. But that means we're a big greenhouse gas contributor in the region, in the Madison metro area. We should always be thinking about how can we lead on reducing that and working on that really important issue of climate change. It's only one dimension of this. There's lots of other dimensions to sustainability, but to kind of you know, bring it back around to my main point here, I'd love to have the commission think about whether we might want to add a fifth pillar here, I guess, to go back to an old word we use, and add sustainability as another performance area.
Okay, so Ezra's proposing adding a 5th performance area, sustainability. I think we should have some discussion on that. First of all, I'd like to say that if we're going to add a 5th performance area, what I had talked with Eric about, and I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, was that we would approve as is and then have to come back and amend it because it would take, we want to add another performance area. It's going to take 3 or 4 months to scope that out.
Yeah, I will say, Tom, I totally agree with that. I don't have specific ideas on what the key performance indicators would be. I think we'd have to process through that just like we did with these 4. And if the process were to work just as this did, where staff works on it first, comes forward with some really good ideas, bounces it off of us, add in some commission ideas, and through that process, we kind of refine to the end of eventually having a performance area and under its specific key performance indicators that we can, you know, start to integrate into all the other levels of planning underneath this. That's perfect. And if that takes a number of months, no problem. I mean, it's a 3-year plan, and it's always, I think, in Eric's mind, and I totally agree, it's something it's always evolving. It's, you know, it is a plan in progress at all times. So no problem with that whatsoever. But I'm curious if other commissioners agree and think this is the right direction for it to go.
Okay, so anybody have any reaction to that? Brad?
Well, I guess my initial reaction is, I was very happy to see, sustainability listed as a district value. And I think, that, as I read the document, I was thinking that reliability, another one of our values, sustainability, and service were kind of overarching values that are incorporated into all of the pillars that we currently have. And I wasn't thinking that sustainability would necessarily be a standalone pillar until, well, I just heard Ezra say it. And I guess my initial reaction is that I wouldn't want our working on that as a fifth pillar to detract in any way from moving forward with work on the 3-year plans and the staff work to move the KPIs forward. Having said that, if the commission believes that this is something that deserves additional attention and discussion, maybe as a group we could have that discussion and see how sustainability could further be incorporated into the strategic plan, either as a fifth pillar or fleshed out in some further way within. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm not fully on board at this point that it should be a fifth pillar.
I tend to agree with you, Brad. My thinking is sustainability is one of those things, like I said, about the organizational structure should align with our pillars. Sustainability should be interweaved into the 4, regardless, and because I can think of different ways it could work with public trust, financial, but particularly infrastructure reliability and regulatory compliance. That's the way I view it. It should be one of those things that you just do, right? But if we want to have further discussion on it, Brett, you got a very good point. Maybe we can discuss it at some point, and it's not necessarily maybe not a fifth pillar, but somehow else it makes its way. Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with both of you, actually. In my head, I look at the 4 pillars that Eric has, or the team has here, and those, to me, anyway, seem to be what I would call our core business. We have to do all of these 4 things. Sustainability should be part of all of them, but not a standalone. So I'm just saying what you guys said, I think.
Okay, anybody else have a reaction? Patrick?
Commissioner Lytle, I didn't want to put Eric on the spot, but I was curious in terms of whether it's scoring projects, whether it's evaluating trade-offs. You maybe suggest some ways in which the sustainability as our core value might kind of run throughout these other 4 pillars, just to give us an idea of, does this warrant further direction at the commission level, or is there kind of a somewhat structured process you're using to about the values and how they are tied into the 4 pillars?
Yeah, thank you. So we as staff have been thinking about this a long time, and trying to figure out how to incorporate this and make it more clear for the commission and customer communities that we are paying attention to sustainability. I'm going to offer a suggestion, but don't hold me to it. I do believe the commission has work to do on our policy book. And we have the ability, if you are interested in writing what I would call as guiding principles about sustainability, to get back to what Commissioner Hovell talked about, and I think everybody talked about that, including Commissioner Meyer. This is something that's expected by staff, but we have never written down what the expectation is. The negative for me is at times if we do a project that's not connected to some other infrastructure improvement, we then commit to taking staff resources away from other things. So that is part of, if we develop a policy or some sort of guidance document like that, it's considerations not only for staff but for commission when we go through projects like that. So I'll shorten that up and summarize it by saying this can be something the commission can work on. That doesn't necessarily need to be in the strategic plan, but it can be bigger than that. It can be a policy type of document.
Okay, Beth?
Well, I agree that we should, or I'm in alignment with approving these as is. However, I think we need more discussion about the definition of sustainability and the commission's direction for the district on sustainability, what it exactly means, and what are the key components we feel that are important for it, and then to decide, does it belong in the policy book or does it belong in the in this? So I think we need to have more discussion around it. So I appreciate Ezra bringing it up, but I think that that's something that we shouldn't let drop. We need to talk a bit more about it, especially define it.
Okay, so I'm thinking what we should do is we should probably have at some point a study session or something on sustainability, and there'd be a couple parts of it. One is, like Beth was saying, what it is, how it works into our workflow, how we do it, and then where's it best placed. And then, so does that make sense? Okay. We're not acting, this action will come at next meeting, correct? And so this meeting was just to flush out any changes or modifications to the plan. So does that make sense, Ezra, to do that on sustainability? You okay with that?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll do that as a study session at some point, put it on the program calendar. Anybody have anything else that they want to see amended or changed or clarified within the document? Okay, seeing none, I think it's pretty much good to go. Thanks for those clarifications earlier on my. Okay, that will take us to the executive director update. Eric?
All right, thank you. Eric Dundee, Executive Director. I actually have quite a few things to report on today for you. There'll be a couple slides here in a second, but first thing to update you on is CARP-C did take up the topic of the Badger Mill Creek framework. No action taken, but just a general discussion to have district staff and CARP-C staff continue to work on this. So that's the update there. We also did receive our permit, our new permit, being effective May 1st. So future agenda item for the commission will be telling you what's in that permit and the things we're doing there. That will have a discussion at our executive management team first before it comes to the commission, just so we can kind of understand what our approach is. So then the next slide, please. To kind of take away from the operations report a little bit, but we had 2 TFOs over the last few weeks. So the first one is a TFO on March 30th. We were doing maintenance activities, cleaning out our grip basins, and we had a mechanical failure on the Vector truck, spilled into an area that's localized that we could clean up and put right back into the system. So that's treatment facility overflow number 1. Number 2 was at night on April 6th. Estimated about 1 gallon, maybe a little more, of anaerobic digester foam seeped out onto the ground, foamed onto the surface, basically coming out of a sample port, or what we call a thief hole that burst. So that's the second one there. And then let's go to the recent storm damage. So over the last week, or the last few days, we've had some significant storms. Here's two pictures of some of the damage that was taken. On the left, this is our struvite harvesting building. So the covering, insulation, and we did actually have a section on the left side of the wall that actually blew out. So we'll be addressing that. And then on the right, some minor damage, so some coverings on the treatment plant in our primary and tankage. The issue here is not the expense of that PVC pipe and the plastic, it's where it lands. So we are now in the process of investigating and fishing out materials out of the primary tanks and things like that. So operations and maintenance has been working on that since I've been gone. So those are the two major ones that have pictures there. We did have a few light poles in the background on the one on the right. You can actually see a light pole has been down. I believe it's three light poles were taken down in the windstorm. Okay, let's get to some good news, please. So then the other thing, the last thing is that our lab was just awarded by the Wisconsin DNR to be Lab of the Year. So just wanted to bring out some good news for you there. That is the end of my report.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Eric. How far did the debris travel?
That is a great question I don't know the answer to, so I'm going to look behind me a second. The answer is throughout the site.
Oh, it's wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Congratulations
takes us
to
to
the
our committee
lab.
report. Oh, what's that?
Congratulations to the lab for that award.
Yeah. Okay. Good job. Okay. Ezra, Performance Review Subcommittee. I know we have a closed session. Anything before we head into closed session?
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Apart from today's check-in on Executive Director performance at the quarter mark, we are meeting real soon for the first time in 6 weeks or something like that with our consultants that are helping us to shape up the performance review process for the Executive Director going forward. So that'll be a good big meeting for us coming up, and then we'll eventually get back to where we bring that new proposal back to the commission, but that may be May at this point. That's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Greg, anything on finance?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Freeze. So we met, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, something like that. The big report out of, excuse me, out of that meeting is we reviewed and approved the year-end financial report for 2025, and spent a fair amount of time on that. I do want to remind everybody, you can always come to these financial subcommittee meetings if you're interested. So we are not bringing that report back to the full commission, but we did review and approve that. And then the other big action item that we are going to be working with our consultant on is some discussion on how we are going to invest reserve funds while they're sitting around waiting, basically, to be used. So that policy is going to, we're working with our consultant, or Ben is, to put together a recommended policy on how those funds spend their time, I guess.
So right now, are they just basically a savings or checking? Better options, or fluid, but yet earn more interest. Okay. Vanessa, regulatory and legal. Or anybody have any questions? No. Vanessa?
Good morning, Commissioners. Vanessa Wishart, Legal Counsel for the district. There's a regulatory update in your packet, but I wanted to note 3 items that have changed since our last meeting. The first is that the PFAS, the 2 related PFAS bills were signed into law, in early April. So those are now, in effect. DNR is holding some, different kinds of listening sessions and webinars on how funding might be used. A lot of that funding, I think, is going to go into that municipal grant program. So there may be opportunity for the district to tap into some of that funding in the future. The other bill that was signed into law is the drones over utilities bill, which I think we discussed at a couple of meetings previously, that regulates the use of drones over municipal infrastructure that includes wastewater utilities. There was previously a statute in place, but it didn't include use of drones over utility infrastructure. So it adds utility infrastructure to that regulation. And that was enacted on April 3rd. And then the last item I want to note is that there are still some rulemaking efforts moving forward at the state level relating to PFAS. One of those is the establishment of groundwater standards. And just recently, the economic impact analysis for that rulemaking was released for public comment, and the comment period is open through May. So I typically work with staff on submitting public comments when it's a rule that would be applicable to the district, and I would anticipate we would do something on that front here. And then I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Could you flesh out that last bit about the groundwater a little bit more? What they specifically looking to do?
Sure. So they're looking at establishing DNR moved forward with adopting drinking water standards that were approved at implementing essentially the federal MCL, maximum contaminant level for drinking water recently. But a large part of public consumption of water in Wisconsin is actually not public drinking water, it's private well water. So DNR is moving forward with a groundwater rule that would put standards in place for just general groundwater standards. So not necessarily when it's a regulated public water utility operating the water system. It has other implications. For instance, if there are like construction activities going on where there's dewatering projects, then there would be groundwater standards applicable specifically to those projects. DNR is already implementing site-specific groundwater standards for those kinds of projects, which that's really more what implicates the district's activities. So it's not entirely new, but they are more restrictive standards that we'd be looking at here. So the rulemaking process requires DNR to put out an economic impact analysis and open that up for public comment before they finalize the rule and then put the rule itself out for public comment. So we're in that first stage looking at what the economic impacts of this rule would be. And the district there have been prior groundwater standard efforts in Wisconsin. Those did not advance through the NRB approval and the legislature. The district had submitted comments, though, on the economic impact analysis and rules for those groundwater efforts. So I'm anticipating we'll do the same thing here.
So how do we use groundwater? Do we have our own wells or?
No, it's more that the district sometimes accepts, when the district is doing construction projects, might have water to address from dewatering projects, but then also does accept groundwater from dewatering projects, construction projects.
And we accept Cottage Grove. Are we still doing Cottage Grove, the chemical plant? Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, this one, and I'll be careful here, this is a legal update. This is more about our ability to accept.
Right.
So.
Yeah, accepting, because you can imagine there will be potentially construction projects done in areas where there is some PFAS contamination in the ground. That water could be impacted by PFAS, and this would set state level standards for that, and then the district, there's different implications for the district accepting that groundwater, the dewatered construction material, and treating it at the wastewater plant.
Yeah, I understand. I've brought this up before about how, these trucks come in and we really don't know what's in them and how it may be affecting our treatment plant process or whatever, so. Dan?
That's like the town of Dunn, number 1, which is right over here. We have people that can't drink their water. It's coming here. Would that be, how would that affect, the homeowners can't do anything, but if they wash their clothes, they do anything, they're sending PFAS here. Indirectly.
From well water.
Just from well water, yeah.
Yeah. That is more of an implication for the district. That particularly is more of an implication for the district as it relates to what's in our wastewater effluent discharge. There are already surface water standards for PFAS, so the district in this new permit has requirements for sampling its effluent for PFOS and PFOA. So that would be more of that implication. For those property owners, this has significant implications because they are setting standards for what their well water needs to meet. And then a large part of what this rule would do is open the door for additional funding sources for people who are on private wells that are impacted by PFAS.
I mean, there'd be funding to fill a deep,
Potentially.
The wells are probably 100, 150 feet
Yeah.
deep. If they go 300 feet, they'd probably be good, so they'd be
Right. Yeah.
required to do that over 10 years or something.
Yes, yeah, and again, that's outside of what we would comment on in this rule. That has not a real implication for the district, but like I said, there are some areas where groundwater contamination, or I'm sorry, groundwater standards would have implications for the district.
Okay, anybody else? And let's see, the future, future meeting schedules in the packet. I don't know if there's anything we need to identify, except that next week we'll act on the strategic plan. So, that takes us to item 6, closed session. Convene in closed session in accordance with 19.85(1)(c) of the Wisconsin statutes to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Executive Director Performance Review. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion, Commissioner Clark.
Motion by Commissioner Clark, second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Bookland. Cassie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bookland,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeze,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubble,
Aye.
Commissioner Longcella,
Aye.
Commissioner Lytle,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Pultz.
Okay, motion carries. We'll convene in the other room. Okay, you ready, Cassie? Okay, so we had a motion by Commissioner Freeze, second by Commissioner Clark to go into reconvene into open session. We did a roll call vote. Everybody was aye. The commission, as part of its standard practice for the past several years, had a quarterly review of the executive director. We had a robust discussion of various points of how he meets various objectives, and we find his progress to date satisfactory. So that's the only report I have. Future agenda topics. One thing I just wanted to bring up, and I don't know if it's for a future agenda topic or not, is I saw I had to do yesterday this AI training. If you haven't done it, look at your district email. And so I'm just curious if we should have a session sometime on how or if or the district is going to start creating policies for use of AI. It was kind of a big thing through that training session. So, and how those, will be developed and monitored and stuff like that.
Because with AI, everything goes out in the, put it out there, it's everybody. I mean, not that it's good or bad, but everything goes. If you have financial numbers, they're out there forever. Right, and that's the thing they talk about. You don't put out certain things that are proprietary or whatever. And then the other thing is, everything's going to be on the cloud with this new ERP. And they said the advantage of the cloud is it can be used by AI. So obviously they're anticipating when I asked that question of our ERP people, so that makes me wonder, we really have to be careful here. So that's why I'm asking if we need to have a study session or a report or whatever.
Eric Dundee, Executive Director. I will actually tell you that this is on our project portfolio as a topic that we have to address. So you're either going to see that in a way of a work plan item, or you're going to see that in the way of a budget request, because we are not the experts. And we got to find somebody to help us out with it.
Yeah, well, having the training come through and talking about policies and that, it made me think, well, I don't know that we have any policies. So, like, the training was almost premature. I can understand why they wanted to do it. Okay. Any other business? And adjournment. Ken?
Commissioner Clark, motion to adjourn.
Motion by, second by?
Commissioner Freeze, second.
Second by Commissioner Freeze. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. See you soon.